Hello there, this is Joy KahNah. Welcome back. In today's video, I am going to be discussing my experience having a Pinnacle cycle with vibration number 7. In my case, this was actually my first Pinnacle, and it actually just ended yesterday. But I noticed that there's not a lot of videos online sharing personal experiences of how Pinnacle cycles affect individuals, so I thought that I would share mine. It was very interesting to have 29 years devoted to the 7 vibration. In numerology, 7 represents a quest for higher wisdom. People who are life path 7s are here to really discover the meaning of life. I mean, that's essentially the path. The purpose of the 7 vibration in terms of lessons is to learn to have faith, right? It's about learning to have faith even in things that we can't necessarily see. And one thing that is unique about the 7 vibration is that it represents both intellect and intuition. And one of the big lessons for a life path 7 or someone who's in a Pinnacle cycle with vibration 7 is to be able to discover the highest potential of your intellect and also discover the highest potential of your intuition. And that's one of the big takeaways from a Pinnacle cycle with the vibration 7. And that is the quest that I found myself on for the first 29 years of my life. And in case you're just stumbling upon this video, you should know that now I am a psychic. And that's something that I achieved about 26 years into this 29-year Pinnacle cycle. My early life prior to that, I always felt very conflicted. I didn't know what to trust. I didn't know whether to trust just my intellect and what could be proven, or whether to trust the longing that I had to believe in something more, put my faith in something more. And it was a profound struggle within me. I can hardly even put it into words or to help you understand, but when you're in a Pinnacle with vibration number 7, there's a need to know the truth. I was born with a desire to be by myself so that I could self-reflect. Because if you are on a quest for something more, if you're on a spiritual quest, you have to be able to get quiet, right? In order to hear the truth or to hear spirit. And 7 is such a reflective vibration. And if you're having a Pinnacle with vibration 7 and it's your first Pinnacle, I definitely feel for you, because it can make you feel really, really different. I felt so different as a child because school in general is really about socialization as much as it is about learning. And I was blessed to have very interesting and kind friends. The only reason that I even cultivated friendships growing up, if I'm going to be honest, is because I didn't want to disappoint my parents, and because it's a social expectation, like that you will form friendships and that you will go to parties. But in truth, I actually, during that Pinnacle with vibration 7, I had to force myself at almost every moment in time, at least 9 out of every 10 moments. I would have preferred to be by myself, reflecting on any number of things, maybe reflecting on things that I had read, or reflecting on things I heard other people say, or just reflecting on bigger questions that I had about the nature of existence. And the vibration 7, it just pulls you into yourself. I remember reading during my personal year 7 a couple years ago, I remember reading about vibration 7, and I remember reading this Numerological article that said that in the past, like thousands of years ago, like if a kid was born with a 7 in a 7 pinnacle, or if they were a life path 7, that they would put them in monasteries because they felt that that was the highest purpose of somebody who was of vibration 7. I personally would have much rather been in a monastery than in school. My parents forced me to do a lot of things, which I know was their attempt to help me find balance. They forced me to try like almost every single sport, and they would always take me along with them on their errands and bring me out in the world. And they took my sister and I traveling actually to every state in the United States. They just wanted us to have all these experiences. And, you know, as a child, I definitely enjoyed kind of visiting all the national parks and seeing sights and stuff. But even then, I can remember being in the car, and my favorite, like, experiences, this is such a confession, but my favorite experiences on those vacations was when it was quiet in the car. There was just a little bit of music, and I was able to just think. And I would often get so frustrated if I was even a little kid, like 6 or something, like sitting in the back seat and maybe looking through a book or coloring or just thinking. I can remember being so frustrated when my parents would stop somewhere, like at some sort of site along the road, and they would be like, okay, get out of the car, we're gonna see whatever. I can remember one in particular. It was like a dinosaur park or something like that, or dinosaur statue, which should be really cool. I was really young. At that time, I think I was only 4. I really never said anything because I always was at least intuitive enough to know that it's not really socially appropriate as a child to just say that you want to be left alone. As I got older, I started to say no more and more, and to just tell people, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I just want to be by myself. But at that time, I would never say anything, but my heart would sink every single time the car stopped. Every single time the car stopped, I would be like, oh, I don't want to get out. Like, I'm so happy to just sit here in the car and just watch the, especially beautiful nature, like watch the mountains outside the window and just think about the nature of existence. I really don't want to, even seeing cool things, like I really didn't want to do it, or I really didn't want to, I never wanted to go on the hikes, or, oh my gosh, or God bless, bike rides. My parents forced me to ride my bike up mountains when I was like a toddler with no training wheels. Anyway, though, I never ever wanted to do that. I always wanted to just ask, can I just sit here? I know they would have definitely said no, because they would have been concerned for my safety, but I always just thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice to just sit on the side of this mountain right here? There was so much traveling in my youth, and I can remember even one year, there was a sort of quiet Christmas break, 2 weeks, and I remember looking forward to that so much. In fact, I would, even after like one day of vacation, I would start to feel sad, even if it was a 2-week vacation, because I would realize that my time alone was numbered. Like, oh no, there's only 13 days left now instead of 14. But I can remember one break that was quiet, and then we didn't have any family plan to come, and I remember just looking so forward to having quiet time, because that's what you crave whenever you're under the influence of 7 vibration. And I remember my parents giving us what is probably the best gift that you could ever give any kid typically, right? They gave us a vacation to Disney World on Christmas morning, and they're like, we're leaving right now, like we're gonna leave in 2 hours. And I remember literally wanting to cry. I was like, oh my God, like you taken away my solitude that I wanted. That's what I wanted for Christmas. I felt my whole life like I was just waiting for the moment when I finally had solitude with nothing else to do besides just to reflect. And yeah, even up until just yesterday, like when my my first Pinnacle with Vibration 7 ended, right? Even up till just yesterday, I always was like on that quest. Like, it's like there's no amount of time that could quell my hunger for more time for reflection. I remember in high school we learned about Emerson, and we learned about Thoreau, and we learned about like, solitude, and we learned about, you know, people who used to like just go, philosophers who would go out in nature and stuff for a long time and just write. And I remember being so jealous, and just, I remember literally like longing like to go back in time and be one of those people. Like, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to just go to a remote cabin and just write about the meaning of life. Like, I don't want to be here in this classroom. And like I really didn't want to. And I valued more than anything else in the entire world, I valued time alone to just read or research. The impulse to research is amazing. I was even like hand selected as a child. They like tested my IQ and stuff, but then I was sort of hand placed into this program for gifted and talented kids that was basically like graduate school for like 5-year-olds, 5 through 12. Instead of being part of the lessons in your classroom, you got to research whatever you wanted. You got to just pick any topic at all. It could be anything. I remember some of my like little colleagues, when I was only probably 5 or 6, they were researching things like weaponry of World War II and stuff like that. So it was real, or the Salem witch trials or things like that. I was able to research what interested me, and that was the saving grace of my education. I think without that program and later programs later on down the road, that also gave me the ability to spend time in self-study, that I probably would have become enormously depressed as a child, because I hated having certain concepts shoved in my mind. I hated being forced in school to think about certain things when what I really wanted to think about was more profound than what we were learning about in school. It just frustrated me so much. What I valued during that time more than anything else in the world was time to myself, to use that mental space for whatever I wanted to and however I felt called at the time. And I would just become infuriated whenever anybody took that time from me. Like, I was just constantly seeking that experience of time to myself for a reason that I didn't understand. And I also felt completely like a freak of nature. Like, completely like a freak of nature, because none of the other kids that I knew, even though I knew kids that were gifted and talented, like, none of the other kids that I knew had an impulse like that to find some sort of wisdom without even knowing what the wisdom was that they were searching for. Well, anyway, eventually I did get that time. I actually went to grad school, and then I joined the Peace Corps, and I was sent to Africa, and I went through the training and everything, and then I finally got placed in a site. And actually I had a postmate, so I wasn't like truly alone, but I mean, she was really cool. But anyway, she was gone a lot, so I did have a lot of time to myself. After 5 months to myself, like 5 months in that silence, and of course I had to volunteer and work, but I really felt like a sense of mental freedom, because I was the only person who was speaking English and things like that I could sort of talk out loud, or I could write, you know, in a journal or something, and nobody would be able to understand it, even if they found it. So I felt that freedom. I felt the solitude, the quietness that I had been seeking for my entire life. I finally felt that. And in that space of that 5 months, I had a complete spiritual awakening. And I walked out of that experience as a completely different person. Up until that point, my entire life had been about intellect and information. And that was, I mean, I guess I was about 23, 24. And that's when I started to feel like I was really out of balance. Like, I had spent my whole life pursuing intellect, which is a 7 thing, you know, but that something was missing. And I remember this moment poignantly where I was really drawn to a guy who was really, really into spirituality and into intuition and stuff like that. And I remember spending time with him and just almost wanting to like rip it out of him, but I remember just asking, so which is it? Like, which is it? Which is the truth? Like, where will I find the truth? Is it in the rational world, or is it in the intuitive world? And I really thought it was one or the other. Like, I really thought that it was one or the other. And I remember him just like being reflective for like a little bit of time, right? And then just being like, yeah, no, it's, even though I really believe in spirituality, like, it doesn't have all the answers, and science doesn't have all the answers either. And he was like, it's both. And I remember being so mad. Like I was so mad, but then I was like, oh my gosh, my whole life is gonna have to change. Like, you know, I wasn't drawn to like spirituality because the whole rational world was wrong. I was drawn to it to sort of balance within myself, and that was the start of my spiritual awakening. And like I said at the beginning, it eventually led me to becoming a psychic as a profession, which is not something that I ever thought that I would be able to do. I remember when I first started selling readings, I didn't really think that anyone would buy them. And then a year later, I had a wait list of like 4 months, and I was like, wow, okay, I guess this is in me. And if you're having a long cycle in vibration 7, you are meant to find your intuition. I think that I probably said enough. Just know that if you're in a cycle with a strong 7 vibration, you're going to be pulled into yourself, and you're going to have to reevaluate truths that you think you know. I went through so many different iterations of what I thought was the real meaning of life and things, and for a long time I believed that the meaning of life was about just individual success and pursuing our goals. For a long time, I thought it was about like making the best use of the time that you have. I went through a very significant stage of believing that the meaning of life was to serve others. After that, I believed that the meaning of life was joy, to just expand our experiences of joy, find love. And finally, at the end of the Pinnacle, I just understood that the meaning of life is about expansion, and it's about gaining experience and experiencing as many different facets of creation as we can. 7 is a profound journey. I'm grateful that I had the experience for 29 years of the 7 vibration. I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience and without that amount of time. I feel like I needed every single minute that I had in order to awaken spiritually. I needed every single one of those experiences, and in order to gain wisdom, the wisdom that I had. And now my whole life, pretty much my life's work anyway, is about advising others. I would never be able to do that. I would never be able to advise anybody spiritually if I hadn't spent 29 years thinking about what it means to be human and how we can make the best use of these lives and what we do or do not owe other people, right? So that's a little bit about my first Pinnacle, vibration 7, and yeah, I hope that this has helped someone. Thank you for watching, and namaste. Bye.